The use of Native American terms or imagery by sports franchises has been one of the most controversial topics in the world. Among the most polarizing have been the Cleveland Indians and their now retired Chief Wahoo logo, and the tomahawk chop used by several sports teams, including the Atlanta Braves and Kansas City Chiefs. But none may be more controversial than the Washington Redskins. The word Redskin is a dictionary-defined racial slur. The origin of the term is rooted in government bounty announcements calling for bloody Native American scalps in the 1800s.
So when they cut that scalp off the Indian people's head, now they could go after little children, babies, and collect more money. That blood would run down their face, that red blood, and down their bodies. They'd put those pouches on their leg, those scalps, and come in and collect their bounty. Henceforth, there's been over 60 tribes that have been totally erased from the face of the earth. Tribes that have been totally decimated, and that's where the word redskin comes from.
And for much of the 20th century, the term was used in movies and books to show a disparaging image of Native Americans. Now, why would Washington have this name with a terrible backstory that offends so many people? That leads us to George Preston Marshall.
But the word Redskins is a legacy of Jim Crow. It's a legacy of the team's original owner, George Preston Marshall, who was an arch segregationist. The team was the last team to integrate in the NFL. That's the legacy of this team name. It's related to George Preston Marshall's love of minstrelsy and diehard belief in white supremacy.
Marshall was the Redskins owner from their inception in 1932 until he passed away in 1969. The Redskins were founded in 1932 as the Boston Braves, but a year later Marshall decided to change the name to Redskins and they would later relocate to Washington. During this time, the federal civilization regulations were still in place, which outlawed most of traditional Native American lifestyle. Marshall was known as a segregationalist and racist. In fact, he was the leader among NFL owners to institute a 13-year league-wide ban on African American players from the NFL. Under Marshall, the Redskins were the last NFL team to integrate when they were forced to do so in 1962. The Redskins have mostly moved away from Marshall's policies, except for the Redskin name. Knowing the meaning behind the term, it's clear Washington should change it. But will they? In 2014, current Redskins owner Dan Snyder had a controversial interview with ESPN where he bluntly stated, "We will never change the name of the team. It's that simple. Never. You can use caps." Snyder has been the Redskins owner for 21 years and has maintained his support for keeping the name. While that quote is heartbreaking for Native Americans offended by the term, there is still hope for a change.
Not forget, there's over 2,000 high schools, colleges, and universities throughout America have changed. They said they would never change their name, just like Dan Snyder, but they have changed. Every single one of them have changed, and so will happen to this Washington team.
Most of the changes come from colleges, which include the Oklahoma Sooners retiring its Little Red mascot in 1970 and Marquette University eliminating its Willy Wampum mascot in 1971. There are many more, including one team that shared a similarity with Washington.
A number of teams, mostly in the college ranks, have changed their names in response to objections. The Stanford Cardinal and the Dartmouth Big Green were each once the Indians. The St. John's Redmen have become the Red Storm. And the Miami of Ohio Redskins, that's right, Redskins, are now the Red Hawks.
Miami University changed its name from Redskins to Redhawks almost 25 years ago. The fact that another team with the same name transitioned should provide more hope that Dan Snyder will eventually move on. However, there are Redskins fans that agree with Snyder, saying the term represents a badge of honor and is not used in a derogatory manner.
Americans, we think it's a badge of honor, just like most people in the country do.
You may not use it in an offensive way, or you may falsely think it represents a badge of honor, but that doesn't change the history behind the term. It doesn't modify the fact that many Native Americans are offended by it, and it doesn't amend its definition as a racial slur. It's time for Dan Snyder to recognize the impact behind the term Redskin and change the name. For Full Sail Live, I'm Justin Velasquez.